Part 40. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 393. Jia Yan felt very relieved when he saw Daphne's confused expressions. This woman's knowledge had always been omniscient in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't know many things at this time, he almost felt, there's nothing this woman doesn't know. In fact, Jia Yan had a slightly inaccurate judgment about Daphne, that is, he thought that this exiled woman had a low status and low strength. However, the actual situation was different from what he thought. The thinking is not consistent, because a being like Daphne is actually the crystallization of the Empire's high-end technology 300 years ago. She can live perfectly for 300 years, which is not something ordinary aliens can achieve. As a result, after so many years of accumulation, this woman's reading volume is extremely terrifying. Coupled with the brainwave power that has been continuously exercised, she is still a pretty powerful person even in the real Empire civilization. While gradually learning about the affairs of this planet, Jia Yan also slowly learned the Asta language from you, Doctor. In fact, Jia Yan is really not a stranger to the Asta human language, because in his aircraft, Jia Yan has studied the language system in the aircraft more than once. Although he did not gain much, but for this I already have a certain understanding of the general structure of the language family. At this time, with just a little guidance from Daphne, some questions that had been confusing for a long time were clarified. After breaking through the first obstacle, some things suddenly become extremely simple, just like the dark clouds are cleared to see the bright moon. So that's it? The words in the aircraft mean to turn on the aircraft. And the first words that Daphne said to the man before were meant by adults. Jia Yan's memory is extremely amazing. Although it cannot be said that all the words she said have been recorded, it can still be guaranteed that they are inseparable, so now it is compared with what she said before. If Daphne knew how efficient the mosquito was at learning, would she exclaim a top student? Of course. More likely. This woman's learning efficiency is probably no worse than that of a big mosquito. Sir, U%% and hashtag /U0026 /U0026 /U0026. Just as the two of them continued to be confused about their next action, there was a sudden voice from behind. Appear behind them. Jia Yan combined the language system he learned before and understood the two phrases adult and you. I only saw one that I seemed to have seen somewhere. The life form with a charcoal black appearance was panting, and its 8 limbs kept running as hard as they could. Approaching Jia Yan and the two. Jia Yan and Daphne were naturally nervous. After all, as a person with a special status, they are already attractive enough, if there are some people who are looking for trouble or something at this time. Then their departure will be even more dangerous. There was a strange luster in Jia Yanfu's eyes, and he looked at the chasing life form for a long time. Finally, I discovered that it was the strange life form that was riding on the body of the three-headed monster when I was getting my identity. But he didn't know that this life form was running so fast. At the moment, Jia Yan watched him and Daphne standing on the roadside and talking. Those two-wheeled vehicles that were very similar to the motorcycles on Earth were driving around. When some people passed the huge body of the mosquito, they stopped for a while in surprise, and then drove on. Jia Yan keenly discovered that Daphne seemed to have something moving while talking to the other party. Not long after, the charcoal black life form led the way, and Daphne used her brainwave power to signal Jia Yan to follow. He told me that there is a place that is very suitable for us to live temporarily during the journey, Daphne explained to Jia Yan. But there is one condition. You need to replace his battle pet and participate in a battle pet competition. What? When Jia Yan heard this, a burst of anger flashed through his heart. He suddenly tightened the brainwave power on Daphne's neck. It made the other party's face turn pale instantly. I said, I came here to get a way to restore my body's fighting strength. I didn't want to come here to participate in some pet battle. If you want to fight so much, go ahead yourself, but before that, it may be me twist your head off first. Jia Yan violently controlled his brainwave power and turned it so hard that a strange twisting angle appeared on Daphne's neck. Jia Yan had bloodthirsty emotions flashing in his heart, because this woman came to this so-called alien planet and let her go several times in order to get her information, but now this woman actually did it again without his consent. Under such circumstances, what pet battle do you decide to participate in with that charred creature? This makes Jia Yan even more murderous. Don't be nervous, I'm not harming you. Daphne struggled for a while, and seemed to feel that Jia Yan really had murderous intentions. After gritting her teeth, an equally powerful brainwave force, gently standing in front of Jia Yan's brainwave power at her neck, a struggle gave her room for brainwave sound transmission. There was a strange look in the big mosquito's compound eyes. If it weren't for such a busy environment, he might have killed this girl right now. I said that I won't have any bad thoughts towards you for a month, and I will definitely do it. Daphne's green-white fingers kept dancing on her neck, where a thread had just appeared. The blood color is extremely eye-catching. I don't know if there is anything special about this woman's body. The injuries that were so serious before are now mostly healed. Feeling the power of the brainwave that broke free from him, Jia Yan felt a little chilled in his heart. Only then did he realize that this woman had recovered a lot of her fighting power. I know you want to restore your combat effectiveness, but it's impossible to find a way to restore it if you are wandering around the city like this. This guy is an expert on war pets. He just told me that he has raised 70 or 80 war pets. Pet, some of the food and energy sources are very strange. I wonder if you can find a way to restore your combat power from the food of those battle pets, so I agreed to his words. If not for this, how could I agree to him? Request. Besides, do you think with your current figure, you can easily find a suitable place to cultivate yourself in this big city? After Daphne explained, the killing intent in Jia Yan's eyes was slightly reduced. If this is the case, she is wrongly blamed. What I don't know is that what Daphne said is partly true and partly false. Once bitten by a snake, Jia Yan was afraid of well ropes for 10 years. Jia Yan was deceived by this woman, so how could he be here now? Trust her completely. Jia Yan continued to move forward. He did not believe Daphne's words, but this did not prevent him from being slightly moved. He felt that these words were a good idea. If the creature with half-charred skin had many battle pets, if so, then he might indeed be able to find an energy source that can be used for reference from their energy sources. Isn't that what he came to the city for? It is impossible to find the things you want in that desolate wilderness. I think it's been a while since I came here too. It's impossible for Daphne to collude with this creature, right? Even if there is something, as long as there is no powerful force ambushing me, I believe it won't be difficult for me to escape from this place. That's right. After thinking about this, Jia Yan's steps became more natural. Daphne was riding on the body of the big mosquito, slightly annoyed. She really thought about the big mosquito this time. She never thought that the giant mosquito would be kind enough to treat her as a donkey's liver and lungs, and almost strangle her to death. And everything that happened behind them was in the flash of lightning. The charcoal-like life form walking in front of the two people leading the way seemed not to notice at all. The residence of this life form is a land near the edge of the outer city. When it comes to the suburbs, the houses in this place are much rarer. Some unique cars are racing on the roads, and the sky is no longer filled with small vehicles taking off. Those vehicles are all traded in other cities. The scientific name of this planet on the Asta people's side is called Yellow Edge Star. There are 7 similar huge cities in total. Only in these cities will they not be affected by the impact of war. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 394. Of course, this is not an absolute thing. In the books I have read that such tragedies happened more than once. For example, after soldiers of one army fled into a certain city, the other side was pursuing them and they would not be affected by the war. The city has been affected, and even the entire city has been destroyed. But generally speaking, such a city is relatively safe. Daphne seemed to know that Big Mosquito spared her several times just for the knowledge in her heart, so she continued to explain relevant matters to Jia Yan at this time. Jia Yan listened to the information. In the silence, Daphne didn't know whether he accepted it or not. But what she may not have expected is that Big Mosquito not only fully accepted her knowledge, but during this period, he also analyzed it like crazy. Through Daphne's explanation, as well as what he saw and heard, a huge interstellar civilization, as well as the network of relationships before the interstellar civilization, as well as the terrifying civilization information, slowly formed a blueprint in Jia Yan's heart. It seems that the huge mysterious world has opened a corner for Jia Yan. Although this corner is only an insignificant part, at this time, the Big Mosquito still benefits a lot. As long as these messages are analyzed, the Big Mosquito can be alone, and maybe he can gain a firm foothold in civilization. Arrive. Just when Jia Yan continued to be immersed in analysis and understanding, Daphne suddenly used the power of brain waves to say something to him. Suddenly I raised my head and saw a vast land in front of me. This place is extremely close to the outside world, but fortunately it is also within the city's artillery defense circle. I guess the price of coming here is not that expensive, so that charred alien can occupy such a wide area of ground. There is a large area of strange scenery there, with several large and simple buildings built here. Their appearance is not much different from those workshops on Earth. This shows how low the cost is. Some life forms that did not look very friendly appeared at any time at this time, but these life forms were locked in a barbed wire fence. According to Jia Yan's judgment, the barbed wire might still be electrified. That charred life form. This equipment was opened. It's called the War Pet Breeding Farm. And it's just a low-level breeding farm that's so low-level that it doesn't even bother to give it a formal name. The three-headed monster that I had seen before was lying lazily in the center of the barbed wire fence, where there were also several similar huge monsters. Each one is like the hill, resting in the empty flat without invading each other. But Jia Yan's huge figure similar to them arrived. It made every one of those monsters react. They all raised their heads, especially the three-headed monster, which was vaguely the head of several huge monsters. He looked like he was about to pounce. But the next moment, this monster was trembling. Today, he still retains the great sense of oppression that Jia Yan brought to him before. Before, he thought it was just a chance encounter with a life form that was far more powerful than himself. The past has passed, but I didn't expect it. At this time, we actually saw him again. And it's still in his own nest. That monster's simple wisdom was filled with despair, in this day and age. It's not easy to find a long-term meal ticket. This guy actually came over to steal his boss position. However, the situation is stronger than the human being. The Big Mosquito in front of him is a powerful life form that far exceeds him anyway. He cannot resist at all. Under the gaze of other companions, this monster lowered its proud head, as if it knew that it was defeated without having to compete. This made the monsters on the side stunned. They had never seen their boss simply admit defeat before. Such a thing is simply unheard of. Jia Yan had no intention of playing tricks with these low-intelligence creatures to compete for the boss position. At this time, he simply ignored this group of monsters and walked forward behind the charred half of the intelligent life. They walked into a simple shed that was almost 20 meters high. After the charred figure entered the shed, the lights came on. The environment inside was just like what he showed. It was so simple, but there were some small rooms in it. The charcoal black creature talked with Daphne for a long time, and then took out a piece of paper covered with twisted fonts. After watching Daphne sign and write, her human face seemed to be filled with satisfaction as she left this place. This is the so-called contract. After we sign the contract, he doesn't have to worry about our breach of contract. Otherwise, we won't be able to stay in any city in this yellow-bordered star. After the half-charred life form left, Daphne took the initiative to talk about the previous conversation. She didn't want to be choked by a big mosquito again. What's going on in the battle between battle pets? Jia Yan asked directly after hearing these words. Combat pets, as the name suggests, are pets with combat power. If people on Earth understand it, they are similar to the combat pets in the games they play. However, in these alien civilizations, combat pets are not things in the game, but real things. It actually exists. Generally speaking, beasts that have been domesticated by intelligent life can be called battle pets as long as they meet certain standards of combat effectiveness. If you have the ability, in theory, even if you have a powerful life form as a war, pets also comply with regulations. Even an evolved beast, Jia Yan interrupted at the right moment and asked. There is no precedent, but I guess it is impossible. Do you remember, I told you before, the evolved beast ranks 97th in the threat sequence of our empire. Among the civilizations I know, almost everyone treats evolved beasts as a similar threat level. Generally speaking, any life form that enters the top 100 threat registrations cannot become a battle pet, unless there are some unique beings. Besides, one of the most terrifying things about evolution beast is that it is the starry sky beast that ranks third in the empire's danger level. It only exists in theory, but the powerful life form that the empire has not encountered several times in its history is evolved from evolution beast. Come. In order to prevent such terrifying life forms from appearing, almost all civilizations are trying their best to prevent the emergence of evolved beasts. Therefore, even if someone can really tame the evolved beasts, it is impossible to display them openly. Jia Yan was silent for a while, and then shook his head helplessly. He didn't know why he had become the so-called evolved beast that everyone was afraid of. Even now, he still doubts whether he is the evolved beast. However, since Daphne is so insistent on what kind of evolved beast she is, it is still very possible. If her identity is so unpopular, he must be careful. If those civilizations find out what kind of evolved beast she is, even if the previous mutation was so powerful, it might be classified as an extremely dangerous level by them, and they might go to Shiyuan to start hunting. By the way, the starry sky behemoth only ranks third in the dangerous order of your empire. What about the first two? Is there anything more terrifying than the starry sky behemoth? Jia Yan asked strangely. Regarding this question, he wanted to ask it last time, but at that time he did not have the ability to speak, and his strength was too low, and he had no confidence to speak in front of Daphne. Of course it's different now. What are you thinking? The starry sky beasts are the most powerful life forms among all the single life forms known to the Empire. This is because they have not shown up for a long time. Otherwise, even if they have risen to the top of the threat sequence, it will not matter. Uncertain. And you have misunderstood. The Empire's threat sequence is not just about single life. It also includes all interstellar civilizations, unpredictable astronomical disasters, etc. Let's put it this way, the Empire's threat sequence. The first one is the Asta civilization, which is at war all the year round. The second one is the Ronzi clan, who often exchange fires from time to time. And the elusive starry sky behemoth has not appeared for so many years, and it can still be firmly entrenched. Taking third place, even above black holes and star explosions, do you think this is still low? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 395. A higher threat level than black holes and stellar explosions. Jia Yan was almost stunned when he heard this. He knew that these civilizations regarded the starry sky beasts as a threat, but he did not expect to value them so much. In other words, they were also very concerned about the evolved beasts that were so closely related to the starry sky beasts. Then it's a matter of course. After all, they are existences that may evolve into giant beasts in the stars. Even in Jia Yan's opinion, if these civilizations do not provoke him, if one day he is really powerful enough to reach the level of an evolved beast, he will not do anything to these civilizations. However, the power of the starry sky beast itself is a sin. Even if they don't attack anyone, how could these civilizations allow such a being to be born? Therefore, it is quite normal to suppress the evolved beasts like this. But when I know that I am the evolved beast, I don't understand the other person's mood, so I just put my neck up for them to kill. Jia Yan is not the kind of guy who just waits for others to kill him. Time soon came to night again. This day is really long. The day and night of this yellow-edged star last for several Earth days each. A whole day is equivalent to half a week of the Earth. The Mosquito has never experienced such a long day. Finally, I can stretch my body in the huge greenhouse. Jia Yan was still crawling on the ground. Although the rock was quite big, it was not big enough to make him comfortable. It just provided a shelter from the wind and rain. On the ground is a portion of common food and energy for war pets brought by the owner of this place, that is, the charred intelligent life. This is also the main reason why big mosquitoes come to the city. In the ripples of that space, Jia Yan lost most of his energy in one breath. Not to mention recovery at this time, there were even some invisible injuries eroding his body. This is also the reason why Jia Yan ran away everywhere before, instead of fighting head-on against difficulties like before. He was actually extremely weak. This is the so-called nutrient solution. It seems to have some effect. But it is too far behind my requirements. Maybe those high-end products have some effect. Finally, I suppressed the feeling of nausea. After Jia Yan used his mouthparts to suck in various so-called energy sources, as well as some food from pets that also sucked liquid energy, Jia Yan made a decision. There is blood in this. I don't know what kind of creature it was, so Jia Yan sucked some of it. It feels like it has some effect, but not much, and at this time. What he was more interested in was the so-called nutrient solution. This nutrient solution. The overall color is grayish-yellow, and it is actually these battle pets. It is even very popular among these interstellar civilizations. This kind of thing. Although each species has its own matching method, the general effect and principle are. They are almost the same, just like the glucose water invented by the people on Earth. It is a regular way to replenish energy and enhance physical fitness. There are also levels of nutrient solutions. What was presented to Jia Yan this time was naturally not some high-end product, but just the nutrient solution commonly used in this war pet breeding farm, but it still had some effect on Jia Yan. Defuni told me before that this kind of nutrient solution is a common thing, and it contains some minerals. I think it is these minerals that are at work, right? Jia Yan thought that all his mutations were inseparable from minerals and those magical substances, so he easily discovered that the minerals contained in the so-called nutrient solution were the ones that had an effect on him. Very good, let Defuni continue to ask Nagatan for more nutrient solution in a moment, and ask for one with a higher mineral content. If you want me to fight for him and you are not willing to pay this little reward, that won't work. Gyutan is the name of that coke-like intelligent life form. It is said that he is a life form from another advanced civilization 30 light years away. He came to this war-torn city just for his own hobbies and to make a living. In addition to sending many battle pets to the outside world, the war pet breeding farm he opened also participated in some gambling battles with war pets. The day after tomorrow was the day he signed up for a battle for his three-headed monster. But the opponent's strength is too strong. You know, it is a monster that is about to be recruited into the army. It's just that the monster's IQ is not high. Later, it was bought by its current owner, and it became for a battle pet. And this Coke life form knew that it had no chance of winning. But that battle was related to the reputation of his unknown breeding farm, and when he didn't know who the opponent was, he had already placed a huge bet on his battle pet. If he lost, it would be a big blow to his breeding farm. Huge blow. But just before during the day, he met Jia Yan. As a professional war pet breeder, at first glance, this guy discovered that Jia Yan, a flying monster, had a completely different powerful temperament from other powerful war pets. Although I don't know how powerful the big mosquito is, when I see him, he is like a king who rules the world, so that all the life forms in the square in front of the administrative building are so frightened that they dare not move. From this point get a glimpse of the leopard through the tube and understand how terrifying the giant mosquito is. Although the battle pet is not judged simply by its appearance, the appearance of the big mosquito can still tell whether it is really strong. Moreover, at that time, De Funi was dressed in a stooped manner, and Jia Yan himself seemed to be a little messy. The Chart Gyutin was keenly aware of the embarrassment between the two, so he made the previous invitation. The purpose is to help Jia Yan survive the next pet battle. Jia Yan and Jia Yan were also eager to get familiar with the city. Naturally, the two sides hit it off and entered a stage of close cooperation. The only thing is that neither Jia Yan nor De Funi has any interest or worry in the next so-called battle pet competition. You know, even if Jia Yan doesn't understand how powerful the so-called battle pets can be, after listening to De Funi's description and combining it with the so-called battle pets that Jia Yan has seen, Jia Yan knows that, this so-called battle pet is a joke to him. Too weak. Even if there are some individuals, they may be military combat life forms obtained by the owner through special means, but Jia Yan does not think that such stray life forms will be very powerful. So after listening to this, I just put this matter aside and just thought about how to get the maximum benefit from Gyutin. Okay, I'm going to put these to use now. Although it's just a drop in the bucket for the energy I'm missing, it's just a drop in the bucket. Jia Yan slowly sucked the selected nutrient solution into his mouth. He had no worries about being poisoned. Anyway, it has been so long since his rebirth that he has not experienced the feeling of poisoning. In other words, he has not experienced the feeling of poisoning every time. These mutations may be a unique kind of poisoning. The process of reorganizing life is definitely infinitely more powerful than so-called poisons. And for really harmful things, I think his body will have an autonomous reaction. So don't hesitate to enjoy these things at this time. I have to say that the taste is very unique, and Jia Yan seems to have some aftertaste. The only pity is that the energy these so-called nutrient solutions can provide to his body is a little too scarce. The days are spent in this kind of time. On this planet, the so-called day after tomorrow, the interval is equivalent to several days on the Earth. Therefore, during this period, Jia Yan woke up, and when he woke up, he went to De Funi to learn Austrian wisdom. The Sto language, and then together with De Funi, went to force Nagyutin to buy more nutrient solution for him to eat. During this time, the day of battle pets competition slowly came. During this period of time, Jia Yan also continued to force Nagyutin, who looked ugly, to buy a nutrient solution equivalent to 1/3 of the gambling funds for this competition. Because of these nutrient solutions, Gyutin really valued this competition more. If he lost, he would really have to pawn his pants. Although, this guy seemed to always be shirtless. The look of wearing a pair of cheap pants. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 396. The morning light was slightly drunk, and in the completely bright sky, there was a bright gray-yellow sun, slowly rising into the sky. The earth seemed to have been gone for a long time, and the gray-yellow vegetation all woke up and stretched their branches towards the sunshine that had not been seen for dozens of hours. In the breeding farm, Jiayan, Daifuni, and Nagutan are all ready and ready to head towards the so-called combat pet battle arena. Okay. Today, finally Yuan hashtag, don't be nervous, I %% Yuan hashtag. I will definitely win, we are the strongest. Gyutan, who was perhaps the most nervous among the group, kept nagging Daifuni to calm down. Because this will infect his emotions to his pet who participates in the battle, which may even be Jiayan. Jiayan didn't show any difference from other battle pets. He seemed to be stupid and clumsy because he couldn't understand other people's words. With Daifuni on his body, he slowly followed Gyutan, who was riding on the body of the three-headed monster, moving forward together in parallel. After dozens of hours of hard work, he was finally able to understand some of the Asta people's language. The Asta language is the official language in the city, so it is said to be Gyutan from other interstellar civilizations. The words spoken at this time are also the Asta language. Although the accent is very strong, Jiayan can understand most of it. The others can roughly understand what it means without even guessing. For this, the big mosquito is extremely satisfied. As for combat effectiveness, after continuously taking the nutrient solution, Jiayan found that the effect was a little worse than expected. Apart from solving the body's hunger, it did not help much with the body's lack of energy. Of course, Jiayan had expected this situation. After all, what Gutan brought out was just the most elementary thing. It should be said that it is already very good for such a bad level to be able to have an effect on powerful evolved beasts. In the past 2 days, Jiayan has been more or less replenished in energy because of this nutrient solution. That's his current plan. If there is a more advanced version of the nutrient solution, then after winning the so-called combat pet battle, he can use himself as the excuse of the winner and state his request to purchase several higher-level versions of the nutrient solution. But those are things that need to be discussed after he wins, although Jiayan obviously knows the answer to this kind of result. There is no lack of confidence, but everything is unexpected. It's not that he thinks he will lose to those so-called battle pets, but there are too many uncertain factors in showing up. For example, if some special events occur, Jiayan doesn't know the place where the so-called battle pets compete. Will there be any awareness of the existence of evolved beasts? If so, then you can't talk about him, and then think about how to escape. But until we get to the place where the so-called battle pets compete, everything is still a mystery. Jiayan has no reason not to even take this risk. Several people moved very quickly and entered the neighborhood again. In this place, aliens were walking up and down the road one by one, but I had seen too much of this scene. Jiayan actually gave birth to a child, and these people are also fresh lives. Aliens are not as mysterious as imagined. These beings still need to live their lives, and they still have daily problems similar to those of people on Earth: money, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Putting aside their monster-like faces, they are actually just ordinary beings. Just the body. With two such huge monsters walking on the street, these strange-looking aliens would still look at them in surprise, but they knew that there were many battle pets in the city, so they didn't feel too much panic. Jiayan followed the three-headed monster. This monster seemed to be a unique existence among all Gyutan's pets. Its intelligence was relatively high. Jiayan had discovered it before this monster even has the potential to use brainwave power, but it's just that its intelligence is a little anxious, so it can't really use it. It seems that it is not impossible that some of the so-called war pets can use the power of brain waves. Jiayanfu's eyes were shining with light. No one has said that these battle pets must not be able to use brainwave power. If they can also use brainwave power, then the powerful individuals among them may cause some harm to Jiayan. But that is just a guess, or a precautionary measure. Even if those battle pets can use brainwave power, it is unlikely to cause much harm to Jiayan. In the past few days, Jiayan has a deeper understanding of the so-called battle pets, or the combat capabilities of this planet, so he has no idea whether there is an existence among the battle pets that can pose a threat to him. I'll be worried. Because the truly powerful combat monsters, whether on the side of the Asta people, the biochemical beasts or the Zerg, are all powerful in combat, especially those like Jia Yan, even if he is only a half-disabled body now, but if it really appears in those two aspects, it will be regarded as a powerful fighting force. No matter what, it is impossible to be exiled to a low-end entertainment competition like a battle pet competition. Of course, there are more things that need attention in the city. Jia Yan went through some of the words that De Funi said in his heart, as well as some of the issues that he summarized that need to be paid attention to. However, this so-called war pet competition is still imperative. It may be a way to quickly obtain nutrient solution. Without nutrient solution, he can't think of any other way to recover his body as quickly as possible. Because there were relatively few vehicles on the road on the ground, a few people traveled extremely fast. After almost an hour, led by Jia Yan and the three monsters, they arrived at an extremely huge building located in the outer city close to the inner city. Outside the building, this place is similar to the ancient Roman fighting arena in the history of the earth. There is a huge and empty venue in the middle, surrounded by some booths that can accommodate tens of thousands of people to watch the battle. Such a place can be said to be magnificent. After all, the competition in this venue, those who fight are those huge battle pets. This is more than a fighting arena, with a length and width of more than 2 kilometers, and a circle in the center. Even a monster of more than 10 meters like Jia Yan can move freely in it. It is a very humane design. However, in such a huge venue, there are not many spectators coming today. There are only a sparse number of less than 5,000 people. These people are all gamblers. They are outside the arena, buying the bets for today's game. Coupon: if you are not a gambling person, you may not have any interest in today's battles. After all, according to Guten's rhetoric, both sides of today's game, whether it is Guten's three-headed monster or the opponent's battle pets, are not well-known characters in this arena. Just when Jia Yan arrived here, some of the spectators who came to watch the game also saw the appearance of the big mosquito here. %Yuan hashtag is so big, %Yuan looks very powerful. After Jia Yan mutated himself, his antennae and ears became much stronger, and he heard some strange-looking intelligent beings over there talking about his own affairs. Although I don't understand half of what I heard, go to Shuyuan, but this does not prevent him from knowing that those people are surprised by Jia Yan's own power. However, he was not surprised. Each of these characters was very familiar with battle pets. Jia Yan's own appearance, no matter from which angle he looked at it, had the conditions for a powerful battle pet. These people who have been immersed in this way for a long time, it is a matter of course that one can see his extraordinary character. Of course, it is impossible for these people to know that Jia Yan is not at the level of a war pet. If he were only a war pet, he would not have come to this planet despite the dangers of the earth, let alone grow to such a level. The situation. To put it bluntly, a battle pet is a normal life form that inherits the genes of its parents by relying on itself, and he, Jia Yan, has mutated from a tiny blood-sucking insect to such a powerful monster. If he was confused with those monsters, Jia Yan would not feel so comfortable. Fortunately, this didn't happen. All the characters who saw him could tell that he seemed different from ordinary battle pets. Slowly stepping into the huge building, the passages on both sides were prepared for the two battle pets. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 397. Jia Yan has already followed Nagutan's request to an inspection place in his own passage. There are some staff there to conduct some simple tests on whether the pets violate the rules. During the test, Jia Yan was almost nervous. Because his body is really impossible to be the same as that of ordinary war pets, but unexpectedly, These war pet testing staff just looked at Jia Yan's appearance, without weapons and without special metal modifications. Wait again, and Jia Yan passed the test. This kind of detection is simply extremely simple. But it didn't take long for Jia Yan to react on his own. The so-called detection should be a process. After all, from the perspective of aliens, there are so many galaxies, and there may be many kinds of life forms, so it is impossible to formulate unified standards. If such a battle pet is formulated, if detailed standards are not set, then all the battle pets will be carved out in the same way, and the fun of battle pets will be lost. Simple detection may be more about detecting some basic things, such as appearance and weight, which are the basis of the basics, because it is like those boxers on the earth, the weights are different, and the grades assigned are also the same. Different. Jia Yan's weight and size are naturally assigned to the largest weight class, and he is fighting on behalf of the three monsters, so at this time, he needs a temporary identity and contacts with the battle pets. While Jia Yan was busy with this, he saw a passage 2 kilometers away on the other side. There was an equally huge monster standing on the other side of the passage, looking at Jia Yan, showing an extremely powerful aura. This monster is a wolf-shaped monster with 2 heads, but its fangs are much stronger than those of wolves on Earth. This giant wolf is 3 to 4 meters long and seems to be one size smaller than Jia Yan. But his weight is not lighter than Jia Yan's body at all. After all, what Jia Yan said. They are both flying monsters, and their bodies cannot be too heavy. If they are too heavy, their flying will be affected. Although Jia Yan thinks that his body is. Even if you gain a little bit of weight, it won't have much impact on you. But biological laws limit his weight in this way, and there is no way around it. Interesting, looking over there, he was actually under his gaze. The giant wolf monster was not too frightening, Jia Yan smiled in his heart. Just take a look. He roughly knew that the strength of this giant wolf was very different from his own, even now. Without recovering his strength, it would be impossible for him to actually get closer to this giant wolf. After all, the level difference is really huge. But this guy can actually see himself. There was no fear at all, but it was beyond Jia Yan's expectation. But at this time, Jia Yan didn't think too much. After all, if all life forms chose to retreat when they saw beings stronger than themselves, nature would have been in chaos long ago. Therefore, it is extremely normal for such a tough giant wolf to exist. Okay, you can go on stage soon. Remember, you must perform well. You and your master have been eating and drinking at my place for free for a few days. If you lose, you will be sorry for me. Gyutin kept whispering in Jia Yan's ears. He looked at the ferocious giant wolf over there, and didn't seem to have much confidence in Jia Yan, the big mosquito. Jia Yan just shook his head speechlessly. If he couldn't even defeat the giant wolf, then he would give up. At this time, he was full of thoughts about Gutan, but this guy didn't know that he could speak, let alone I don't know that he has an IQ that rivals intelligent life. If he speaks at this time, this guy will definitely be shocked. So after thinking about it, Jia Yan decided to maintain a pure battle pet status in front of him. Gyutin was afraid that his efforts would not be rewarded, which was a huge expense. Although he knew that this big mosquito seemed to be extremely mysterious and powerful, he was still extremely worried and kept chattering around Jia Yan. Nagging. And just when Jia Yan was extremely upset about Gyutin, in the audience passage of the arena, there was a row of 3 monsters, slowly walking into the arena. Each of these 3 monsters has short mouths and extremely terrifying eyes. They move vigorously and powerfully. If a strong person comes here, they will be able to see that these 3 monsters are the kind of powerful beings that can go on the battlefield. These are clearly the same rat-like monsters that were chasing Jia Yan and Daifuni before. But at this time, each of them was wearing clothes worn by ordinary life forms in the city, and one of them was still dressed like a noble person. If they didn't know the appearance of them flying on the ground before, it would be impossible. To think that these three monsters could be such terrifying and brutal beings. At this time, how could they look barbaric? It's just that these monsters at this time still exude an aura that prevents strangers from entering, causing those approaching life forms to stay away from their location in great panic. Squeak, 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 the leader of the rat monster looked at the contestants far away from where the audience was seated, when he saw the huge giant mosquito monster over there. He screamed suddenly. Several other mouse monsters also had a feeling of surprise. These monsters chased them all the way. From the beginning, they were a large group, and finally dispersed, taking different paths, and some were attacked by the inexplicable monsters in the forest. Kill, there were only 3 of them at this time, and finally the Emperor's heart paid off. I saw my goal. They are extremely confident in their sense of smell, knowing that the big mosquito over there is undoubtedly their target. Looking at the giant mosquito monster over there, these rat-like guys all had weird gleams in their eyes, but after seeing the turbulent demeanor around the big mosquito, these monsters were silent. Come down. Hizzy. Not long after, the leader of the rat monster who saw the target person suddenly made a sound. A slightly weaker rat monster next to him suddenly agreed, and then its body retreated backwards. Not long after, he disappeared in the audience passage. The 2 big mice here were watching the behavior of the big mosquito over there with strange attention, as if they had no intention of doing anything for the time being. Naturally, Jia Yan didn't know that there had been several huge rat-like monsters running all the way, chasing him for so long, and now he was just resting in his player's resting place, bearing Guten's thoughts. Daifuni had already gotten off Jia Yan's body, and now she was looking at the aliens in the field. The expression on her face seemed to be very interested. When Jia Yan came into contact with her in the past few days, she found out by looking at Jiyuan that this woman seemed to accept her affairs on this planet very quickly, but if she thought about it carefully, it was normal. If it were Jia Yan who had been trapped in a place on Earth that could be called a shackle for 300 years, she would definitely be like her, curious and excited about everything on other planets. But now that this woman has such emotions, Jia Yan is relieved. After all, he is afraid to see a perfect opponent, Daifuni with normal feelings, so that his vigilance and defense can be relaxed a little. Otherwise, Jia Yan would feel like she was calculating against him in whatever she did, which would make her extremely tired. Alright, players, get ready. Just when all parties had different thoughts, an order from the referee came from not far away. At this time, the audience also heard the commentator's loud announcement on the radio. For a moment, all the life forms, regardless of whether they were interested in this battle before, opened their eyes wide. Even if they were not interested, they still found the battle between such powerful life forms extremely exciting, especially compared to when casualties occurred in the arena. These life forms were even more completely crazy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 398. 2 chapters are merged into one chapter, 5,000 plus words, which is not less. Jia Yan heard the referee's announcement over there and wanted to leave Guten immediately, who was thinking about it. At this time, he really wished that he had not learned the Ostal language, but at this time, his language ability was still improving amidst Gutan's thoughts. As a result, Jia Yan could understand it better and better. The more I do, the more I get bored. Your opponent is a monster that has won 2 games in a row. Don't underestimate the enemy. You must win, don't leave. Listen to what I have to say. The signal to start the game was like a life-saving signal for Jia Yan. Jia Yan quickly put Guten aside and walked towards the center of the battle circle. Guten did not expect that big mosquito seemed to be quite eager to fight. At this time, Seeing Big Mosquito being so active, even if he was dissatisfied with the other party's attitude of ignoring him, he felt relieved. He absolutely believed in the combat power of this unprecedented flying monster, but what he was afraid of was that he underestimated the enemy. Now he could only count on this Big Mosquito. Little did he know that Jia Yan rushed to the stage so quickly just because he was annoyed by his nagging. The giant wolf-like monster over there also walked out from where the players were stationed. As it moved around, it stared at Jia Yan's figure and kept roaring in a low voice, making the two sides seem to be opponents of the same level. Maybe this monster made a mistake, that is, he thought that Jia Yan and his strength might not be much different, so at this time, he directly wanted to compete with Jia Yan. But in fact, the gap between the two is simply huge. And this is still in a state where Jia Yan's energy has not recovered. If his energy returns to its previous level, Jia Yan feels that he can defeat this giant wolf just by relying on his own powerful momentum. With fear and fear. In fact, terms such as momentum are not that mysterious. Just like an antelope on the earth that sees a lion. Sometimes when this kind of creature sees a lion, it will be frightened and unable to move. This is a kind of natural fear rooted in their bodies. But this giant wolf at this time, the situation is still a little different. That is, he is not only a little afraid of Jia Yan, a monster of similar size to him, but also has a little fighting spirit. Roar, this giant wolf roared as Jia Yan slowly walked towards the center of the battle circle. After that, the bristles all over its body stood upright. They all stood upright, as if they knew they were encountering an extremely powerful enemy. So he acted extremely fearful. But his opponent, the Big Mosquito on the stage over there, didn't look dignified at all at this moment. He just stepped into the battle circle extremely calmly. These battle pets all have certain intelligence, just like the giant wolf in front of them. In the past few days, Jia Yan had often heard Na Gyutan talk about the strength and origin of this giant wolf, so he had no idea about the identity of this opponent. I still have some understanding. The other party is a test subject from a certain life research organization. This is not a strange thing, just like other war pets. Many of them also come from these places, those life research organizations. Some are for medicine. Some are just to study powerful beasts for combat, and some are simply to satisfy some unique interests and hobbies. Among aliens, it is not illegal to study such life forms, because all advanced alien civilizations have actually benefited from such research. For example, the Asta people, the former Asta people, are just his home planet is a primitive society full of birth, old age, sickness, and death. However, after a certain so-called scientific research, the entire civilization was affected by that research. As a result, the Asta people not only had their lifespan increased. With the improvement, the wisdom of the brain has also been greatly strengthened. It's just that now, it's not certain whether they can say that they are still the original Asta people. When the giant wolf saw Jia Yan's inquiring expression as he casually came to the opposite side of him, there was also a slight anger in his expression. It has been transformed and has a certain amount of wisdom. It knows the life form in front of it and seems to look down on it a little, so at this time, there is a pretentious movement in the roar. Look at the two monsters fighting below. One is a failure from a certain life research institute, and the other is a mysterious substitute. No one knows the strength of this substitute. They just look at the performance of the wolf. You know that the opponent is not a simple thing, this must be a battle between dragons and tigers. You can guess their victory or defeat before they start the war. Come on, put in your bets. Let the victory or defeat of both sides become your capital. Believe me, your vision is not wrong. You will definitely win the funds for this battle, and the cost will be accumulated for the next battle. In the broadcast on the loudspeaker, there was the commentator on the sidelines who kept urging people to bet on the fight. The commentator was drooling. Their salary was linked to the betting money. At this time, they could naturally seduce as many viewers as possible. Just bet on how tempting it is. I have mastered more and more of these Asta people's languages. I can already understand half of what the host said. Jia Yan's eyes flashed as he listened to the host's words. In his opinion, some of the culture and traditions of this Asta people are very similar to those of people on Earth, except that the giant wolf over there had no idea of stopping because of Jia Yan's strength. As a monster with some battle pet fighting experience, he suddenly entered the battle state. But what he didn't know was that although his opponent had no experience in fighting pet battles, Big Mosquito had more actual combat experience. Those experiences gained from life and death competitions were more valuable than those in this so-called battle pet battle. I don't know how powerful it is with the experience gained from it. What's more, Jia Yan's strength itself is much stronger than this giant wolf. Okay, the competition officially begins. Before the competition started, there was something like a fence blocking the two sides, but when the host said the words to start the competition, the fence was put down. Roar. For the first time, the giant wolf over there roared, and then it attacked Jia Yan all at once. Its fangs are extremely terrifying and even have traces of blood. This is a life form that is used to eating meat. What Jia Yan knows is that there are many kinds of life forms on alien planets. But a simple truth is the same as the Earth. That is the development of a living race. Basically based on plunder and plunder. And eating the bodies of other living beings is an extremely simple way to source energy. So this giant wolf must be the kind of being that eats meat every day and develops a ferocious character. It screamed and rushed towards Jia Yan. The huge body of more than 10 meters has an extremely terrifying momentum. As a monster that has already won 2 games. This monster naturally has its own momentum and its own creed. Even if his opponent is stronger than him, he can't give up. The giant wolf attacks. And the big mosquito opposite him has a huge body. It seemed that he was so frightened by the opponent's attack that he didn't move at all. The charred face of Gyutin below had a darker expression of anxiety. He didn't know why the big mosquito refused to move. Could it be that what he was most worried about happened? This monster actually looks powerful. But he doesn't have any combat experience. Otherwise, why would I be unable to move in the middle of a battle? As everyone knows, Jia Yan is there. He just looked at the giant wolf charging towards him. There was helplessness in his heart. He had never cared about monsters of this level before. Even though they had a body of more than 10 meters and about the same size as himself, the way the opponent attacked was completely different from the opponents he had encountered before. He looked at the opponent's impact indifferently. The speed of the attack was probably 200 to 300 kilometers per hour, right? It's very powerful, but compared to myself who always uses the speed of sound as a measure of speed, it's not at the same level. Boring. Jia Yan shook his head helplessly, and then moved his body at will just before the other party came. The giant wolf's attack was like that of thousands of horses galloping. Its momentum and power were extremely terrifying. It moves like a speeding truck, moving extremely fast and with an ultimate sense of beauty. Every tangle of muscles and every step is a dynamic state of perfection. This beautiful and powerful animal is the most beloved animal in the entire battle arena. Below, the spectators were all cheering for this monster. The giant wolf was about to get in front of the big mosquito. It felt its claws were extremely itchy and wanted to scratch off the seemingly solid exoskeleton of the opponent. His fangs were all red, as if he couldn't wait to bite the enemy into pieces. As a life abandoned by the Life Research Institute, But at this moment, he found that the huge creature in front of him disappeared directly in front of his eyes. How is this going? The giant wolf was immediately stunned. At this time, many life forms in the audience also shouted loudly. As lovers of war pets, most of them actually have extremely high combat effectiveness. The combat effectiveness of some life forms is even one level higher than that of all the war pets present. Those life forms, seeing this at this time, everyone was shocked when they saw the big mosquito's movements. With the help of their powerful strength, they could barely see the big mosquito's movements. That's when Jia Yan actually used a running speed close to the speed of sound. With a twist, he avoided the inevitable blow of the giant wolf. But at this time, all those characters were extremely surprised and not too frightened. After all, among the battle pets, there are also some who are extremely powerful, especially if the specialty of a battle pet is speed. So the speed that Jia Yan is showing now is nothing. But they were also a little puzzled. There was a monster with an appearance they had never seen before. It obviously had a pair of wings, but its ground speed was actually so fast. Could it be that this monster was not actually a flying life form, but a flying creature? A monster running on the ground? This kind of thing is really a bit abnormal for the law of life. They all guessed that this strange-looking life form should be a monster running on the ground. Otherwise, how could he run so fast? But none of these people know that Jia Yan is a typical flying life, and the speed at which he flies will definitely make their eyes drop. But in today's battle, he just used the running speed of his 6 long legs, which was enough, so he had no idea of flying. Boom boom boom. As the giant mosquito ran, he felt that the air in front of him turned into huge resistance. To intercept him, it's usually a giant mosquito flying at several times the speed of sound. It can't be stopped by this little air resistance. His speed became extremely fast in an instant. After twisting to avoid the giant wolf's attack, Jia Yan originally wanted to attack with a knife-shaped horn on his forefoot, but after thinking about it, Jia Yan gave up the direct attack. As someone who has just arrived in the city, he needs to retain a certain amount of strength and wins too quickly. That's definitely not a good thing. Daphne over there also saw the big mosquito's obvious action of releasing water, and couldn't help being shocked. She knew about Jia Yan's attack. It can definitely make the giant wolf lose its combat effectiveness directly, but now he has not done that. Instead, after dodging the attack, he moved aside. I see, your wisdom is much stronger than I thought. As someone who has been in contact with Jia Yan for so long, Daphne understood Jia Yan's thoughts at once. At this time, she had an inexplicable look on her face. No one knew what this woman was thinking. Who? Don't run, fight. Ho ho. Giant wolves are running around. He actually spoke the Ostal language. Although he was not proficient in it, Jia Yan stood up and he could actually speak it. It seems that among these so-called war pets, it is not impossible to have some extremely intelligent beings, so if I show my intelligence in the future, it should not be so eye-catching. Jia Yan heard the sound made by the giant wolf and ignored the other party's invitation to fight. Instead, he had other thoughts as his expression moved. The giant wolf claws at me again. There was a strange gleam in Jia Yanfu's eyes, but he still did not take action directly. Instead, at this moment, he seemed to be a little bit unable to evade. Kankan was caught by the giant wolf, and under the sharp claws, he was caught in a critical moment. Dodged the opponent's attack. At this time, some of the audience in the stands regained their composure. They had seen the mosquito reach such terrifying speeds before, and thought that the opponent was so powerful, but now they saw him suddenly avoiding him and becoming embarrassed. Suddenly, I thought that this big mosquito had just exploded with strength for a moment before, but now it has not recovered its strength, and it was almost attacked by the opponent. There's nothing remarkable about this monster. I guess he is also a failed life form from a research institute somewhere. Otherwise, if he has a pair of wings but can't fly, this is not a failure. What else could be a failure? The big mosquito in the field seems to be really in danger. In addition to dodging the first attack beautifully, the attacks of the giant wolf in the back are not so clean. This kind of performance, in the eyes of others, is like a dragon with a snake's tail. Performance. Miss Defune. Your battle pet won't lose, right? You know, I invested 50,000 Asta-UN in this battle. Guten stood in front of Defune with an ugly face at this time. Beside Ni, asked with a bitter look on his face. He was dressed in pitch black, which was definitely a sharp contrast to the dazzling Daphne beside him. Don't worry, he's just playing with his opponent now. Daphne glanced at the battlefield. She looked down on the scene of the battle, and it was even less likely that she thought that she could handle that one. Giant wolves and giant mosquitoes can't be solved. This big mosquito wants to pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger, so let's satisfy him, but Guten will find it thrilling and make it difficult for him. Of course, Daphne would not explain anything, she just looked at the situation on the battlefield with an indifferent expression. Next, the attacks from both sides started to come back and forth. Overall, the speed shown by Jia Yan still suppressed the giant wolf. Although it was not as amazing as the first moment, it was not slow at all. Boom boom boom. Two huge bodies kept running in the battlefield, and then the big mosquito suddenly came to the side of the giant wolf. Phew. A gentle thrust from the front foot poked a bloody hole in the giant wolf's abdomen. Ouch, the giant wolf monster screamed in pain, and then a flash of blood appeared in his cold eyes. As a combat life form, this monster naturally has its own blood. When the big mosquito fights against him, its innate blood comes out. At this time, the monster ignored the injury on its abdomen and directly twisted its head in an almost impossible twisting method. The bloody mouth opens wide and bites the big mosquito. Humph. I didn't expect you to be so tough. Jia Yan saw the monster's ruthless look. It was obviously very different from his own strength, but at this moment, he felt that this giant wolf monster was somewhat similar to himself. Isn't Jia Yan just like him? In countless dangers and desperate situations, he used such ruthlessness again and again to survive each crisis. Forget it, let him lose easily. Thinking of this, Go to Shiyuan Jia Yan's body suddenly moved. It seems that his strength has exploded again. The speed becomes extremely fast. Here we go again. This life form with two wings must have a potential explosion mode. It exploded once before, and now it happens again. The commentator over there quickly conducted his own analysis and found an excellent excuse for Jia Yan. And just as he was speaking, Jia Yan had already avoided the fierce bite of the giant wolf with his extremely fast speed. After escaping this fierce counterattack, Jia Yan had no intention of playing with him anymore. He quickly arrived right in front of the giant wolf's head. The giant wolf's eyes were blood red, but after the bite failed, the ruthlessness in its eyes weakened a lot. Now that he saw the big mosquito coming in front of him quickly, his ruthlessness subsided very quickly, and that kind of panic emerged. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 399. A counterattack on the verge of death is just a natural reaction of this kind of life form, just like those beasts on the earth. Which one does not have an extremely fierce counterattack on the verge of death? But after the fierceness is over, when you see that your opponent is far more powerful than you imagined, this cruelty will quickly turn into a kind of fear. This is the situation at this time. This giant wolf is about to attack the big mosquito at this time. It is simply terrifying. Sure enough, there is still a gap between me and me. When Jia Yan saw the other party's appearance, he laughed to himself. If it were him, he wouldn't be able to give up in such a desperate situation. But this giant wolf gave up. The stabbing cuticle of the forefoot turns into a flat strike. It's not a stab, because this monster doesn't deserve to die by his own hands. And more importantly, if this monster dies by his hands, then his virgin battle will be a bit too much. After all, the visual effects achieved by defeating and killing are completely different. If he did that, it would definitely attract more attention. Jia Yan did these things just for his continued recovery and to become stronger in the future, not for the limelight, so he cannot be killed at this time. Bang! With a crisp loud noise, the giant wolf let out a howl, and the top of its head seemed to be hit directly by something powerful. Its body was like a cannonball, and it flew to the side of the ring. His body made a friction sound on the ground, and then hit the corner of the wall hard. Even the several spectators sitting not far from the wall were affected by the impact, and almost became unsteady and fell off the auditorium. Wow! Seeing that the giant wolf lost its fighting power in an instant, it was lying in the corner where a large piece of broken masonry was knocked out by its head, and it seemed to be lifeless. However, Jia Yan knew that his hand was too heavy, but it was absolutely impossible to endanger the other person's life, so he just looked at the giant wolf over there. Then his body moved. Go down. The referee raised the flag, the nameless pet wins. The winner of this battle has been decided. The winner is actually the strongest assassin who participated in the pet battle for the first time and had no reputation at all before. His master's name is Gyutin. Let us fight for this. Cheers to the winner. He actually defeated his opponent who had won 2 games in a row. This is a magical pet. His strength is unfathomable and his victory is well deserved. Look forward to his next battle. Finally, a strong assassin has been born, and the title of the first battle pet. Who will take it? Is it the Black Tornado, who has won the first place in the battle pet for 2 consecutive years, or another battle pet? Even the one we see in front of us. Mysterious assassin? This season's battle pet competition is in full swing. Please stay tuned to the Battle Pet Competition channel. We will provide you with all the following battles and competitions, so stay tuned. Jia Yan looked behind him while listening to the narrator's eloquent explanation. The giant wolf over there had already stood up under the attention of its owner, but it was still dizzy at this time and could not even stand firmly. And the owner of the war pet looked at Jia Yan with his own resentful eyes. As the owner of a war pet, his efforts were actually not much different from Gyutin. Since Gyutin had paid so much, if he lost, will affect his own net worth, and he is actually not much different. So at this time, regarding the big mosquito that has affected his future, this person looks like a frog-like life form, and there is strong resentment in his scary-looking eyes. But that's how battle pets compete. If someone wins, someone will lose. What's more, this frog-like life form will know in the future that losing his battle pet to the monster Jia Yan is not something worth resenting at all. Because the opponent's strength is absolutely superior to that giant wolf. In this battle, the opponent may not even show 1% of its full strength. Ha ha ha. Well done, boy. Jia Yan came down from the stage, and Gu Tan was already greeting him quickly. It could be seen that this monster was extremely excited, and it seemed that its already dark complexion had become even darker. Winning such a victory was nothing to be happy about for Jia Yan. He could not understand Gyutin's happiness, and De Funi over there showed no expression at all. After handing over some matters, the 3 of them together with Gyutin's 3-headed battle pet, they stepped out of the battle pet fighting arena. De Funi, did you hear what I said? Why don't we stay a little longer and watch the competition of other war pets? Only by knowing yourself and your enemy can you be victorious in every battle. Gyutin was sitting on the body of the 3-headed monster. He seemed to be dissatisfied with De Funi's decision to leave the battle pet fighting arena directly with Jia Yan. However, it was Jia Yan who won. De Funi insisted on leaving, and he had no choice. Way to stop. It's not necessary. We already have a complete understanding of the strength of these battle pets. De Funi sat on Jia Yan's back and said in a faint voice. In fact, it was Jia Yan who was leaving. There was no way she could disobey Jia Yan's orders, right? And she also knew that it was normal for Jia Yan to say he didn't want to watch anymore. After all, the strength of those battle pets was not much different from that of the giant wolf. Even if there are some slightly powerful beings among the war pets, Daifune also knows that it is impossible to pose a big threat to Jiayan, so there is no benefit in staying at this time. It is better to quickly make Nagatan fulfill his promise. Use the bonus to fulfill his promise. That's right, it's the nutrient solution Jiayan is looking forward to. Okay, I have won a little bit. As long as you continue to help me establish my name as a breeding farm, it doesn't matter if I spend some money to buy you more nutrient solution. But Daifune, what's going on with the battle pet? Other battle pets just eat a little nutrient solution and become overnourished. You just ate so much and haven't had any reaction. You just ate the nutrient solution as a meal. I'm still looking forward to him. Give me a name for my battle pet breeding farm, and don't let anything happen to you. Gu Ten continued his thoughts. As the owner of a war pet breeding farm, he knew the role of those nutrient solutions, but he did not expect that the flying war pet that had just won the battle could still be eaten. This was beyond the limit. To his surprise, his common sense made it impossible for the situation to happen. Daphne did not answer his doubts. Gyutin had no choice but to stop asking. None of them had any disagreements over whether to continue fighting in Daigutin's breeding farm. Jiayan wanted to continue to recover for his own sake. And stay here to earn nutrient solution. Daifune's expression changed, but she didn't raise any objection. She definitely had other purposes, but at this time, she had no idea what she wanted to do. And just when a few people here walked out of the battle pet competition arena. In the auditorium over there are two mouse-like life forms. At this time, they also left their seats. They lowered their hats and looked cold. Walked out of the fighting arena. Not long after, these two monsters. They all followed the big mosquitoes. But they didn't get close at all, but used their talents to hang far behind. Even Jiayan is at an extremely long distance. It was impossible to detect the tracking of these two monsters, heading towards Gyutin's war pet breeding farm without any other abnormalities. Squeak, 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 halfway through the line. The leader of the rat monster over there said hello to the other one, but the rat monster next to him had a little hesitation in his eyes. Squeak, 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 the rat monster headed by it roared in anger. The following rat monster had no choice but to look deeply at the leader before quickly running forward. The leader of the rat monster at the rear suddenly became a polished commander. However, he did not feel any discomfort, but at this time, he was full of expectations for what was about to happen ahead. Jiayan and Daifune were walking alone on the road. Gyutin went to the so-called Battle Pet Center to buy some nutrient solutions for the battle pets, as well as report and submit results, etc. He was not afraid of Jiayan and the two leaving his battle pet breeding farm. After all, they were able to cooperate until now. He also found that the identity of this battle pet and its owner seemed a bit mysterious, and it was not easy to find a suitable place or nutrient solution again. This is also the fact. After getting Gyutin's help, Jiayan and Daifune have a little stability on this planet. However, they are still extremely emotional about what happened recently. They did not expect that, but in just a short period of time, they came to this planet from the Earth. It was like a dream. Daphne actually had a guess that she didn't say out loud, and that was that she felt that although they were only within the range of gravitational waves and experienced only a few dozen hours, in fact, they might have already spent a lot of time in them. A few months or even a year in Earth time is possible. This is the conclusion that Daphne came to by comparing the knowledge she memorized and comparing the movements of stars in the starry sky. But she didn't tell the whole story. The two of them were walking towards the Gyutin war pet breeding farm. They didn't care about the war pet competition. For them, this kind of thing was no longer on the same level. Even Daifune, facing those so-called battle pets with bare hands, as long as her brainwave power exists, she can easily destroy those so-called battle pets with her brainwave power. Even battle pets are completely meaningless to the city, to the entire Osta civilization, and even to all interstellar civilizations. Perhaps only those who pursue wealth will want some such battle pets as their own pets. It is impossible for a truly strong person to appear among such so-called battle pets. Truly powerful combat life forms, even those created by various civilizations, will acquire normal identities after showing their strength. Some individuals with high intelligence may even obtain citizenship of the civilization in which they are located because of their strength. This is why in many civilizations, life races flourish. In fact, there are only so many leading races in that civilization. However, in the long-term development, not only the own race mutates and evolves into various derivative races, but there are also more the created lives became the regular existence of their race. The battle pets in the battle pet competition can never become the protagonist, they are just a member of the regular entertainment projects. So after knowing this news, even Jia Yan, a country boy like Earth, looked down upon such an entertainment project from a different civilization. But at this time, he still has some ideas about this project. After all, this is a stepping stone for him now. As a life form from an alien planet, he has no other way to gain room for growth. Only through this simple projects, use your own strength to get something useful to you. One large and one small continued to move forward without saying anything for a long time. Jia Yan is thinking about the Earth. For him, the time was only 20 years, although Daphne knew that the exploration ship was coming. It was only 10 years, but Jia Yan always thought it was 20 years. There is a little time difference in between. Daphne's eyes flashed, and she occasionally looked at the sky. It seems that the eyes can see through the distant sky and into the sky. Those things in the universe, far away. The speed of the two moving forward is actually not slow. Because of Jia Yan's great strides, he can move forward at once, no matter how slowly. It was also comparable to the speed of ordinary cars, so it didn't take long. They walked through the main street and reached the more desolate outer city area. As a vassal of the main city, this outer city has no function other than arranging the poor people. Some factories and things that are difficult to arrange in the main city are also placed here, such as domestic garbage treatment plants. Moreover, the relatively poor life forms in the outer city will not complain about this kind of thing. In fact, it is all those the factory existed first, and then the poor appeared. Along the way, there are still those alien intelligent beings who are not rich. As alien poor people, they can see that life is indeed ordinary, and even some poor people are even more miserable than the lives of people on Earth. After all, this place is not a place where civilization really develops. It is said to be a place of war. There are many people who want to come here to dig for gold, but the complex environment also makes those life forms full of crises. It can be said that opportunities and risks coexist. But Jia Yan and the two didn't care. Even if there was some so-called bullying, it was impossible to bully these two new faces. After all, Jia Yan's huge body kept those so-called gangsters at bay. Yes, among aliens, there are also so-called gangs and other organizations. After all, places with intelligent life are full of competition. Since there is competition and some similar organizations appear, it is a certain thing, such a thing, it can be said to be a principle-like thing in life. And these gangsters who have become the slums of this outer city naturally have extremely strong fighting power and courage. Facing those so-called war pet breeding farms and those who have powerful war pets, it is impossible for them to provoke them. Yes, and those so-called battle pets can only have a sense of existence in front of these ordinary bad guys. Maybe their main battle targets are these little gangsters. But there is obviously something different today. Just when Jia Yan and Daphne walked to a relatively remote place, almost close to Gyuten's war pet breeding farm. A monster that didn't seem to be that big. Wearing a cowboy hat that looked like a human on Earth, it lowered its body and blocked the middle of the road. Its body seems to be only about the size of an adult, maybe even a little smaller. But the moment this monster appeared, there was a feeling in its body that was far more powerful than the giant wolf before, appearing in Jia Yan's sense of biological autonomy. This is a kind of self-feeling towards a living body after reaching Jia Yan's level. After all, he is already a powerful monster. Sometimes, just by looking at a living body standing or even walking around, you can roughly find out if the other party is a powerful being. This time, Jia Yan stood firm. "Who are you?" Daifuni sat on the body of the big mosquito and frowned, but she was different from Jia Yan. Her single body combat ability was not as powerful as Jia Yan, so her senses were not that sharp and she could not sense it at this time. This monster is actually more powerful than the giant wolf pet that fought Jia Yan before. Hizzy. I blocked the road. "Give me money," the monster made a sharp cry, and it took a long time to spit out a difficult Ostal language from its own mouth. Hearing such a string of words, Daifuni was stunned. She didn't expect that there would be such a lovely life form, which seemed to ignore the huge body of the giant mosquito, and stood in the huge shadow of the giant mosquito with a figure that was not much different from that of a human on Earth, and dared to talk about robbery. The alien life forms we encountered on the street before, not to mention the single monsters, even the vehicles, all slowed down when they saw the big mosquitoes approaching. You must know that Jia Yan's current body is really more than 10 meters long. An existence that is more exaggerated than ordinary Earth trucks. Those vehicles are afraid of colliding with the giant mosquitoes. I don't know if the giant mosquitoes can withstand it when the time comes. Those car owners must know that their vehicles may be scrapped, so when they see the giant mosquitoes, they all slow down. And in this situation where everyone is avoiding it, there is actually such a stupid existence, standing alone and trying to rob. The big mosquito walked with its fighting power, reaching a height of 3 stories, directly blocking the body of this tiny monster under the shadow. When the monster made a strange cry, Jia Yan was also curious. Did the monster really think it was powerful enough to deal with him? Otherwise, why would you stand up and provoke under such a strong body contrast? Squeak, 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 the monster over there obviously didn't just come here to talk. Fighting is his real purpose. All of a sudden he launched his own attack. Its body bent low and flew towards where Jia Yan was. Bang bang bang. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 400. The short monster's sharp feet without shoes stepped on the ground, making a crisp popping sound. The surprising thing is that this monster actually burst out at a speed exceeding the speed of sound in an instant. At the same time, the sharp claws also stretched out their bodies, and with the blessing of reaching the speed of sound in an instant, they wanted to grab Jia Yan with one claw. At the same time, about a kilometer away, a monster of the same size poked its head out of a wall. His cold eyes looked at the battle here lightly. That's right. He was the leader of the rat monster who gave the order to attack Jia Yan and the two. The purpose of this monster is very simple, just to see if the flying monster is really powerful. Boom boom boom. The slightly smaller rat monster over there launched its own attack. Despite his small size, as a true combat life form, his strength is not comparable to that of ordinary combat pets. Even the giant wolf today cannot be his opponent. I saw this monster leaping on the ground, and his body jumped directly in front of Jia Yan's head. Then his sharp claws reached out and grabbed Jia Yan's head. He actually planned to end the battle with one blow. Even with such a thin body, the speed reaches a level exceeding the speed of sound, which is much more powerful than ordinary bullets. With one blow, even a building may be destroyed directly. However, how could Jia Yan make it happen? What's more, this monster really underestimated Jia Yan. When he saw this monster jumping, the luster in his eyes lit up. With a snap, Jia Yan's body moved, and his head seemed to be in a critical moment, barely dodging the attack. The mouse monster's eyes also lit up, as if its attack was effective, as before. He saw Jia Yan's fighting ability. I felt like I wasn't very sure, but now it seems like the gap isn't that big. Could it be that there is a chance? This rat monster thought so just now, but the next moment, the shadow of an attack made him think this. Directly annihilated. A very fast black shadow turned into a black lightning just after Kankan dodged its attack. It seems to fall from the sky. Phew. After a crisp sound, the monster used something like a black shadow. Attacked directly on the monster's belly. The rat monster's eyes seemed to pop out, and in just a moment, a mouthful of blood spurted out of his mouth. And this blood is green in color. It can be said to be very disgusting. Jia Yan also hurriedly avoided the blood at this time. The speed at which he avoided the blood was even faster than before. It was simply unbelievable. Let's look at where he attacked. It turned out to be his own long mouth parts. It turned out that when he was dodging, he just swung his mouth parts for the convenience of attack. After that, the speed of the mouth parts exceeded the opponent's speed extremely quickly. Sure enough, one blow had an effect. Boom boom boom. The rat monster that was hit flew away like a cannonball. After rubbing against the ground and blowing up bursts of smoke and dust, it bounced 300 to 400 meters away. Such a thin body could not survive even a casual blow from Jia Yan without being injured. Sure enough, I saw him lying on the ground all of a sudden, losing his intuition. Except for the slight rise and fall of his chest, which could prove that he was alive, there seemed to be no big movement. The mysterious rat monster leader in the distance had a humanized look of shock on his face. As warriors in war, although these rat monsters are not responsible for combat matters, how can their combat power be something that an ordinary war pet can deal with? But the battle pet in front of me actually defeated such a warrior so easily. The leader of the rat monster over there seemed to have a less than happy expression. As for the big mosquito here, there is a strange light in its compound eyes. Forget it, this monster is a robber, so just give him a warning. Besides, if you kill people here, it seems that you will get into trouble. Thinking of this, he slowly turned around and walked towards Gyuten's breeding farm. Daifuni, who was riding on Jia Yan's back, looked at the rat monster over there with a strange expression. At this time, her thoughts were different from those of the mosquito. As someone who knew more about these alien civilizations, she knew that a gangster from a remote area couldn't possibly have such fighting power. But she didn't say anything, maybe because she couldn't tell whether the rat monster was a special person, or maybe because she wanted things to be even more chaotic. Convenient for her next move. However, this rat monster managed to save a life. Apart from the matter of the rat monster, the next situation did not change much. The days passed so slowly. Jia Yan began to serve as Gyuten's nominal battle pet, fighting for him on the battlefield. Gyuten spent part of his victory money to buy a large amount of nutrient solution for Jia Yan. The money in this city is a unique thing unique to this planet that is recognized by both warring parties. Money can be owned in various ways, some can be physical gold and silver, some can be bank notes, and more still there are some virtual currencies like online banking. In fact, even though there are many types of these currencies, the physical ones are unique things with some electronic identification signals. If they are just bank notes, the possibility of imitation and counterfeiting is too great. Got it? Jia Yan and his wife also received part of the money, but most of it was spent on Jia Yan's recovery. In such a situation of sucking nutrient solution regardless of cost, Jia Yan's body can be said to have recovered very quickly in an extremely fast way. As for the battle pets over there, he was slowly increasing his ranking casually. Just 1 week from this gray-yellow star, which is equivalent to 1 month from the Earth. Jia Yan, who fought every day, gradually became more and more famous in the outer city compared to the fighting arena. As the sun rose, the familiar auditorium with tens of thousands of people in the arena was actually more than half full. The assassin stretched out his front foot. Another blow. Knocked down. The opponent did not cause any trouble to the assassin. In Benbai Arena, the strongest dark horse, the assassin, won again. This also represents him, enter the semi-finals of this battle pet competition. 300 battle pets stand out from the 6 districts in the outer city, the 7 districts in the inner city, and the surrounding communities, a total of 11 districts. In the next month, we will compete for the supreme throne of the city. Including the dark horse assassin in front of everyone. The other 299 battle pets will launch their own attacks on the strongest battle pet Black Whirlwind, who has occupied the supreme throne of battle pets for 2 consecutive years. Can Black Whirlwind win the battle between these two? Under the sniper attack of 199 monsters, he successfully aspired to the strongest throne for the 3rd time. Becoming the 5th war pet in history to complete these 3 consecutive championships. Who will stop the Black Tornado? Is it the assassin in front of you? Or a pet from other war zones? Stay tuned to this channel, the answer will be revealed to you in the next month. Jia Yan looked at the opponent who fell in front of him and walked off the stage without any hesitation. Gyutin below had already been waiting there with a darker complexion. It could be seen that he was very excited. What Jia Yan did has exceeded his expectations. He originally just wanted to win 2 or 3 games and that would be enough, but he didn't expect that the monster he invited would actually gradually improve himself when facing more powerful opponents after winning 2 or 3 games. Fighting strength. The result was that he won every battle. Even today, Big Mosquito won the last victory in the group and advanced to the finals of the city's battle pet competition with a complete victory. Because the record was so astonishing, under the coaxing of the war pet host, Jia Yan, a dark horse who suddenly appeared, really became a nickname that the host ridiculed, Assassin. Today, the assassin won again. Gyutin definitely has reason to be happy. You know, the sales volume of his breeding farm has more than doubled in the past few days. How can this not make Gyutin extremely excited? It is foreseeable that the Big Mosquito won again and even advanced to the city finals with a complete victory. This information will definitely make his breeding farm usher in a new sales peak period. Jia Yan was very satisfied with his saddle. Gyutin was extremely proud of hiring this Big Mosquito as a substitute for his breeding farm these days. However, he was very proud of the mystery and origin of the Big Mosquito and Daifuni. I also had a little awareness. Fortunately, the cooperation between the two parties is still very close, so there has not been any gap. The players from both sides retreated, but this time Jia Yan still didn't kill him, and the host on the other side no longer showed resentment, but a kind of gratitude. This is the change brought about by strength. During the first battle, the owner of the giant wolf monster thought that Jia Yan was just an ordinary battle pet, so he naturally had resentment. But now all the battle pet battle followers have noticed that, Big Mosquito only injures his opponent in every game. This is something that the owners of battle pets are extremely grateful for. After all, they have spent a lot of effort to cultivate every battle pet. If they died casually and became crippled, then they would have lost everything. While Jia Yan is powerful, he is always merciful, which may not make those war pet owners grateful. But the actual reason is that Jia Yan didn't think so much at all, he just didn't bother to kill these guys whose life levels were too different from his own. At this time, he was still pacing towards the resting room of his pets indifferently. He was still so natural and had a sense of ease. This can't help but make those viewers who like Jia Yan pay more excited attention to him. Let's go back. Daifuni over there saw Jia Yan coming back, put down the book she had been reading, and then said to Na Gyutin calmly, as if she didn't care at all about the battle. In fact, Jia Yan herself doesn't care. In other words, she, like Daifuni, has no interest in the current battle. It is not on the same level as them. Uh, well, I won a lot today. I, I'll buy you an intermediate nutrient solution. Na Guten saw that Jia Yan and Daifune seemed to be indifferent, and finally he gritted his teeth and said, "Oh." Hearing this, Jia Yan's heart moved, if he hadn't always pretended not to speak. Now it's time to ask directly. Fortunately, Daifune may have seen Jia Yan's enthusiasm. So I asked a few questions. With Guten's introduction, Jia Yan gradually understood the effects and differences of this intermediate nutrient solution. The mid-level nutrient solution he was talking about. It is a nutrient solution developed by the exclusive Battle Pet Association to provide those powerful battle pets. But for ordinary battle pets, this kind of nutrient solution is not only of no benefit. There are many disadvantages, but the principle is actually very simple. That's like a human being on Earth taking too many supplements at once, which is absolutely not okay. But he thought about it. There is absolutely no problem with Jia Yan's assassin, he has never seen it before. A battle pet that can continuously drink low-level nutrient solution as if it were water. In other words, none of them knew, except Jia Yan. Are there any other battle pets that can continuously drink nutrient solution like this? After all, it is not an ordinary thing. One bottle of the energy in it is enough for a battle pet to digest it for a long time. A few people chatted for a few words again, and then left the battle pet arena under the watchful eyes of the staff. The assassin and his master finished each battle by themselves, and stopped watching the battles of other battle pets. They just walked away as if they didn't need to spy on the enemy at all. Such a skillful performance made those who believe it assassin's powerful audience, increasingly convinced that this monster will create a terrifying result this year. I just don't know if it's the top 10 or the top 20. As for the top 3, no one thinks he can do it. After all, the top 3 are occupied by those battle pets who have been famous for a long time. Although the host mentioned time and time again that assassin may be the strongest assassin this year, it even seems that he will really defeat those old and powerful battle pets, but no one still believes his words. After all, the existence of these hosts is to encourage people to buy gambling chips. Their words are simply impossible to believe. Jia Yan and his party, however, did not realize that they were walking out of the arena. Two rat-like monsters in the auditorium, dressed like humans touching dogs, were staring at the direction in which Jia Yan and others were walking away. The body of a rat monster is still covered with bandages, and it looks as miserable as possible. The other one is a rat monster that has a bit more of a superior feel than the rat monster on one side. They all looked at the departing Jia Yan and his party with their seemingly extremely dark eyes. After that, the leading rat monster made a few impetuous squeaks. This scream was not in the Ostal language, and the alien life forms next to it did not understand it. Only the bandaged rat monster on one side understood it, and he shook his head helplessly. The two rat monsters were extremely helpless. They had already tested the fighting power of the big mosquito. For this reason, the rat monster's men still looked seriously injured, so they did not dare to take action directly, but were waiting. What? At the same time, in that far-away place. The sky is filled with mist here, and there is still a steady drizzle above our heads. Aircrafts blooming with brilliance were attacking downwards in the sky. At first glance, the aircraft were unparalleled in their momentum, like an endless stream of beasts attacking from the sky. But beneath these seemingly extremely advanced aircraft, there are huge bodies one by one, standing proudly on the ground or in the sky amidst the turbulence. They all seem to have no trace of technology, but their powerful bodies are still eye-catching. One of the giant horned monsters on the ground, more than 50 meters high, was definitely the biggest highlight on the battlefield. In the sky, there is an equally huge moth-like monster with a body exceeding 30 meters in length and its wings spread out, covering an area of more than 100 meters. It also has a generally powerful feeling. These two monsters were indistinguishable, and each commanded their own team formation. Each monster showed no fear in the face of the army of aircraft attacking overhead. Not long after, another incredible battle broke out. The monsters here are constantly falling to the ground dead and injured, but there are more falling down from the aircraft. Flying monsters accounted for 1/3 of all monsters, and the other 2/3 of the monsters lifted the boulders around them one by one and threw them towards the sky. The boulders they smashed up were like anti-aircraft guns. Some aircraft flying more than 1,000 meters high would be smashed by them and fall to the ground. This battle was another baptism of blood and fire. Not long after, the battlefield seemed to become silent. The dead and wounded monsters all had other monsters coming to pick up their bodies or remains. The body of the 50-meter giant horned monster is riddled with scars, but those scars are not from now at all. It seems that this battle has not caused any injuries to appear on it. Just when this monster found a place on the edge of the battlefield and wanted to take a rest, hizzy, there were sharp screams, moved him. Under the gaze of his eyes that were as big as doors and windows, a strange-looking life form jumped across the bumpy battlefield ahead and came to him. Squeak, squeak, squeak. This monster looked like a mouse. After seeing the horned monster in front of it, one of its fingers was larger than its own, it quickly lowered its body, and while lowering, it came out from its mouth. A series of sounds. The horned monster listened to the other party's cry without any emotion, as if it could really understand it. After a while, the horned monster showed a look of interest. After that, the monster faintly turned to the side and let out a roar of hiss. As this voice appeared, at the same time, an equally huge monster, no less than 20 meters tall, suddenly walked out of the monster army not far away from him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 401. This monster is all white, with fur standing on end. In this bloody battlefield, it seems to be a beautiful embellishment, making people feel bright in the bloody earth. This strange beast has strong feet, taut muscles on its body, and big charming eyes. It seems to be the star of this group of monsters, so beautiful. Ho ho ho. The huge horned monster seemed to soften its eyes a little when he saw this monster. Then he made a sound, causing the other person to bend down and follow the order. Not long after, the rat monster also retreated. As for the horned monster himself, he just forgot the news he had just obtained, and slowly fell into sleep with a crawling, indescribably huge figure, snoring like thunder. As for the beings in the distant breeding farms, they had no idea what was happening in the distant war land. Han Yang is just following his own steps and carrying out his own recovery plan. As a being who lives on other planets, he has done enough. God knows how many things Jia Yan needs to do under such circumstances. Now he not only needs to win in the battle pet competition, but also needs to take into account the danger that battle pet competition may bring to him. Pay more attention to some of Daifuni's methods. As a representative of civilization who has lived for 300 years, Jia Yan does not believe that she has no means and is just waiting for a month to come. In fact, if calculated according to the time on Earth, 1 month is almost here. During this period, Jia Yan paid more attention to each other. Come with me. Returning to the breeding farm, Jia Yan made a faint sound. Daifuni's expression didn't seem to change, she just followed Jia Yan. Scenes like this have been happening since arriving on this planet. Jia Yan couldn't let Daifuni out of sight of his body. As for those high-tech equipment, he doesn't even allow the other party to touch him. In the case of unequal information, Jia Yan could only do this. After all, he didn't know whether the other party on this planet could rely on some equipment that he didn't understand. What a trick! Thanks to this idea, Jia Yan was also absent during this time. Have a good understanding of the things of this planet. Without access to those high-tech things, Alien civilizations, to him, became just Earthlings with weird bodies. The two passed by a battle pet room opened by Nagatan. There were two monsters that looked about 5 meters tall, lying there softly. Watch the TV news ahead. Among the battle pets, some are relatively intelligent and can understand part of the TV. That's it for these two. Jia Yan would come to this place occasionally, quietly crawling by the window, watching the so-called TV here. Say it's TV. In fact, it is a holographic image, and the characters in it look like 3D. Extremely clear. According to the news just received by the station, the biochemical nation has urgently announced that it will pay a goodwill visit to the city. The person visiting this time is Mr. Satsuma Khan, the diplomat of the 38th Troop of the biochemical nation. Jia Yan looked through the window and heard what was said inside. He half understood it, but after seeing that it was equivalent to political news, he stopped paying attention. What he didn't know was that this news would be closely related to his future. At this time, I missed the news and walked towards the greenhouse that belonged to me and Daifune. The intermediate nutrient solution is here. Not long after, Gyutin left the two of them and returned to the breeding farm. His face became darker, but this was different from the people on Earth. Gyutin's race only looked dark when they were happy, rather than being unhappy. In his hand, he carefully held a package. There were some things in this package. After entering the greenhouse where Jia Yan was, he took out one of the slender tanks. This tank is not small, it is basically a slender thing that is more than 30 centimeters long. There was some weird green liquid in it, bubbling and bubbling, which didn't look very attractive. Here, this is the intermediate nutrient solution for you. If I hadn't gone early today, someone else would have bought this nutrient solution first. What a good luck, N.A. Gyutin handed the nutrient solution to Daifune. Now I still think that Daifune is the authentic master of Jia Yan. He admired the relationship between the two very much. They lived and ate together, which made him, the owner of the farm, feel a little ashamed. After handing the intermediate nutrient solution to Daifune, Gyutin left the greenhouse. Open it, drink a little and try it. Just when Daifune was about to hand over the intermediate nutrient solution to Jia Yan, a faint man's deep voice suddenly came to her ears. This is Jia Yan's voice. What? Daphne was startled. After that, she just smiled angrily. The big mosquito was obviously worried that the intermediate nutrient solution was toxic, so he wanted her to taste it first. Thinking of this, Daphne's face turned cold, but she still opened the lid of the nutrient solution and gently poured a small sip into her mouth. Gurgling. A trace of green residual juice dripped down her snow-white gooseneck. After the woman took a cold sip, her eyes turned to Jia Yan, but she became even more indifferent. After observing her for a while, Jia Yan found that there was no sign of poisoning, and then he nodded with satisfaction. Since this woman can bear it, then it is no longer a problem for me. Jia Yan's mind went crazy. The nutrient solution jar in Daphne's hand slowly floated and flew towards his mouth parts. But Jia Yan keenly noticed that Daifune's face had an abnormal flush. I guess it is an intermediate nutrient solution, but not all beings can take it. Daphne can withstand the effect of a small sip, which is already considered powerful. Jia Yan has already had a certain understanding of the intermediate nutrient solution on this planet. At this time, when he saw that Daphne had a certain reaction to the efficacy of this substance, it felt normal. On the contrary, it was better to say that there was no the effect of the medicine is the abnormal thing. The tank tipped up while it was flying in the air, and then Jia Yan's mouthpiece gently activated the suction force to directly suck out the liquid inside. Suck it gently into your mouth. For him, a jar of more than 30 centimeters can only hold a small amount of liquid, just a small sip. That's all. Comfortable. It is indeed an intermediate nutrient solution. It can restore a lot of my energy. After Jia Yan drank a can of nutrient solution. It feels like the energy has indeed improved to a certain extent. And it's more than a bit stronger than the low-level ones. But that's it. No matter how strong it is, it doesn't feel like it at all. After all, it is an intermediate nutrient solution. Although it is also extremely valuable, in this city. Or for those aliens, it is not something that cannot be pursued, and for a being like Jia Yan, it's just a drop in the bucket. But this is much better than the low-level ones. Jia Yan discovered that if all use intermediate nutrient solutions, then his recovery speed will definitely be much faster. Those green liquids seem to contain powerful minerals. Jia Yan, who relies on the variation of minerals, can definitely extract energy substances from them. In fact, besides this method, Jia Yan can also try other methods. For example, to search for some special substances, just like what he did on Earth before. It's just that he still doesn't understand this planet, and he feels that the battles in the outside world are full of risks. So after thinking for a while, Jia Yan judged that he should still carry out his own repairs in the city. Unless things change, or force him to become stronger as soon as possible, otherwise, he will not take risks and face those risks. After all, he is still adapting to this planet, and even the entire world he is facing now. Life now is just a small aspect of this planet, or in other words, this world has only slightly lifted its veil for him. After he took the intermediate nutrient solution, his energy was restored to a certain extent. Daphne watched calmly beside him. And when Jia Yan didn't know it, several strange metal substances were slowly condensing under Daphne's fingers. This is a communicator that Daphne asked Gyutin for when she was in the battle pet competition arena on Jiayan. At this time, this communicator, I don't know when, had changed a little bit from when Gyutin first handed it to her. A series of strange wave bands were emitted towards the sky. While doing these things, Jia Yan didn't notice at all. He just thought that he had control of everything about the other party. However, as a person who did not understand the strength of interstellar civilization, it was impossible for him to control all the other party's actions. Okay, the signal has been issued. Maybe the Empire will send reinforcements soon. Unfortunately, I have fully told the Empire that he is an evolved beast. After all, in my opinion, this guy, he is simply a cold-blooded creature. There is no need to hide anything for him. There was something strange in Daphne's eyes. After a month of contact with him, Jia Yan's too much caution against him had caused her last good impression of the Mosquito to completely disappear. At this time, she spread everything about the big Mosquito to the Empire. Daphne sneered. And the so-called gravitational waves? After several days of secret calculations and research, I have come to an astonishing conclusion, if this conclusion is correct. Thinking of this, the strange light in Daphne's eyes became even more intense. Got it? Variables, less than a month after Jia Yan came to this planet, slowly changed. A few days later. Next, our reporter will interview the owner of the assassin. I believe many people know the assassin. Recently, the assassin has entered the semi-finals and has not stopped. This is the first year that a player has participated in the battle pet competition. Since the beginning of a game, it has maintained a victorious attitude, and has even joined the ranks of the top battle pets. In the first game yesterday, the semi-finals, this battle pet still performed well. With a 30-second within a short period of time, he defeated the 21st battle pet Ba Deo in the last battle pet competition. Now we will interview the owner of the battle pet, Gyutin. Let's take a look at his experience in training his own battle pets. A group of characters appeared in Gyutin's war pet breeding farm. They were huge, at least no less than 20 alien life forms. Looking at this scene, Jia Yan was lying on the ground and was speechless. Gyutin over there had been so nervous that he didn't know where to put his hands and feet. Now surrounded by the camera, he seemed a little confused about what to do. As a monster that stood out from the huge battle pets in a turbulent time. Jia Yan, who goes by the pseudonym Assassin, victories were won one after another. Such results made all the spectators turn their attention to this almost completely victorious monster. To know. A war pet breeding farm that has no appearance of mountains and rivers wants to cultivate truly powerful war pets. That is almost impossible. The battle pet breeding farm can also be said to be a kind of accumulation, and there are not one or two outstanding battle pets. In one fell swoop, he cultivated an extremely powerful battle pet that has never been defeated even now. It's almost impossible. Mr. Guten, you know that many people were not optimistic about your breeding farm before this battle pet competition began. What made you and your battle pet assassin bear so much pressure? We won every step of the way, even yesterday. Who defeated last year's 21st battle pet Ba Deo? The host handed the microphone to Guten. Well, I think I'm just a very ordinary breeder, but I still have some experience in breeding war pets to share with everyone. After Guten experienced some initial restraint, he finally showed his long-tongued nature and started talking loudly. Jia Yan, who was resting in the greenhouse, couldn't help but shake his head when he heard his words. This guy, who was obviously an ordinary breeder, now started a long speech, and the hosts and staff all believed it. There is no way. Who made this guy become a powerful breeder who trained himself as an assassin? Jia Yan felt ridiculous when he thought of yesterday's battle. For Jia Yan, the so-called 21st battle pet is not much different from other battle pets, but for him, it seems that he has to pretend to fight for a little longer, otherwise, the 21st battle pet can be easily dealt with, so his strength will really be more eye-catching. Participating in battle pet competitions was a way for Jia Yan to obtain nutrient solution, but attracting attention was not what he wanted. So Jia Yan's real idea is to lose in the 8th or quarter-finals. That way, even if some people doubt his fighting power, they can't imagine him as an evolved beast. Got it? The interview here is not over yet, but it is destined that this interview with the news about a remote war pet breeding farm is destined not to become the protagonist of the news in this city recently. The news these days has been surrounding what is about to happen to the diplomat from the biochemical country. The biochemical country and the Zerg army in the fierce battle are still fighting an incredibly powerful war with the Asta Empire outside the plains. This is a war that has gone on for more than 200 years, and it is foreseeable that this war that has lasted for so long on this planet will not end all at once, and may even continue for another 100 or even 200 years. Maybe. Of course, this is a compromise between the two forces, or a balance point, which is why there are several huge cities all over the planet. That's why so many forces and people from interstellar civilizations can appear in this place. Even immigration and formal official documents have appeared on this planet. Although on the surface, all the construction projects are carried out by the Asta people, everyone knows that in fact, this is a joint venture between the biochemical nation and the Zerg. There is something involved. How could these cities be built without their approval? Therefore, for the sudden announcement of the visit to the biochemical country, the whole city was like a whirlwind. No one knows who the so-called diplomat is. Even before this, no one has ever heard of the concept of a diplomat in the biochemical country that is regarded by others as a rough and tumble country. But no matter what, this so-called diplomat is a role that cannot be neglected, so journalists from most cities have covered the grand scene of the arrival of this biochemical country's diplomat. Boom boom boom. Just on the agreed ground, a huge body appeared in the air. That is a huge figure that cannot be described in words. It was more than 70 meters long, with its wings spread out, covering a radius of 200 meters, and all the shadows of living things on the ground were obscured. Countless reporters in the city were speechless looking at the giant thing above their heads, and even the hosts were dumbfounded. It's not that they have never seen a huge aircraft, but they have never seen such a huge flying life form. You know, even the appearance of a living body needs to comply with the rules of life. In a life environment that is not much different from the Earth, it is not easy to grow to such a huge body. And at the same time it is a flying life, it can be concluded that it is impossible. Because this has violated the laws of biology, only those living entities that have broken through the essence of life can achieve it. Therefore, it can be said that the flying monster is definitely a life form that far exceeds the so-called battle pet. This is the real fighting life. Compared to the so-called battle pets in the city, it is definitely an existence that is beyond many levels. Just when this flying monster came over the city, a white figure jumped down from the sky. What a beautiful figure this is! With pure white hair, a handsome figure, and strong but not bloated muscles, he seemed to be a combination of strength and beauty. This life form, in the eyes of all life forms, is a beautiful existence at the golden section. Hello, I am a diplomat belonging to the 38th unit of the biochemical nation. My name is Satsumakan. A clear female voice spread throughout the entire ground, and huge brainwave power vibrated in the air. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 402. Rolling for genuine subscription. I have really lost a lot of subscriptions these days. Bulletin U knows that the plot has been excessive recently and it is not so comfortable for everyone to read. However, every book cannot always be high. See, a huge new worldview is slowly unfolding. The next step is a bigger stage and excitement. I hope everyone can subscribe to it and let you write better. Thank you. Such huge brainwave power, combined with that perfect appearance, is simply mesmerizing. This Satsuma-sama is still a female. What a beautiful woman. Even living beings like us with different appearances can feel her perfection. When that pure, snow-white life form landed on the ground, countless hosts spoke these words in front of the TV cameras at the right time. Maybe it's flattery, but the other party must have real materials before you can say these flatteries. While those reporters and hosts were chasing after him crazily, no one noticed that the white monster over there activated its huge brainwave power while dealing with those alien life-form reporters, asking the several equally huge monsters following behind. In which battle arena is that flying monster you mentioned located? I really wish I could see him sooner. The huge flying creature above the head was only used as a means of transportation like an airplane. After this white life form landed, it turned back to where it came from and returned again without looking back. Under the gaze of everyone, the white life form moved its long and strong legs and slowly walked forward. The senior officials of the city quickly accompanied him, explaining everything in the city in a panic while paying attention to safety issues. You must know that the life forms of the biochemical kingdom rely on their own bodies to become powerful, and they can fight evenly with the Asta Empire. They are the puppet-like city leaders. I can't afford to offend him at all. Jia Yan responded to the diplomat's appearance. He didn't know anything at all. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care too much. After all, everything on this planet is still in a state of ignorance for him. How could he notice such trivial things? He's just paying attention to his path of repairing energy through consecutive wins. Gyutin seemed to be greatly benefited, even after the TV station came to interview him the next day. I immediately became cruel and continued to buy 3 bottles of intermediate nutrient solution from the Battle Pet Center. Very good. Drink 3 more bottles in one go. It is estimated that the total energy I have recovered during this period, even if it is not completely restored, is at least close to half of the level. And I found that the fact that the energy disappeared so completely this time is not a bad thing for me. At least in terms of the control of energy, because I experienced a trough to a peak state here, it will be good for me to master power in the future. At night, Jia Yan looked at the 3 bottles of intermediate nutrient solution placed on the ground, his compound eyes sparkling. Daphne stood aside, looking at the 3 bottles of nutrient solution on the ground with a look of reluctance on her face. If the big mosquito continues to regain its strength, then even if the Empire comes to the city, it will cost more. And for her, the stronger the big mosquito is, the more dangerous it is. If the date of a month is calculated according to Earth time, then it has already passed. However, they did not agree at first whether to calculate a month according to Earth time or according to the 30-day calculation agreement on this planet, so Dai Fu Ni is always worried whether the big mosquito will kill her. After all, the other party has mastered her language and other abilities at an extremely fast speed. She originally thought that it would be impossible for Big Mosquito to master the language of the Asta people so quickly, but she did not expect that Big Mosquito also seemed to have some language skills. With a certain amount of talent, you can understand and speak basic Asta dialect in just a few days. In this case, Daphne's effect on large mosquitoes will be reduced rapidly, and she doesn't know how she will be treated in the future. However, it is obvious that Big Mosquito has not yet wanted to deal with the woman Daphne. Perhaps he thinks that she can still be used to a certain extent, or simply because he wants her to continue to maintain the role of master here in Gyutan, so there was no sign of taking action. Evolved Beast Daphne watched as the big mosquito used the power of brain waves to open all 3 bottles of intermediate nutrient solution on the ground, and then poured the pale green liquid into her mouth. Her face became increasingly ugly. Jia Yan doesn't care what she thinks. He just wants to regain his strength and possess strength. Even if there is a conspiracy to do something against him, it will only become more and more difficult. Pour the green intermediate nutrient solution into your mouth. Jia Yan seems to be able to taste the minerals contained in it. They are powerful things, and they seem to be very easy to digest for him. After all, this is something that ordinary evolved beasts can use. As in there is no way it cannot be digested by an evolved beast that only swallows its powerful form. As expected, the energy is increasing rapidly. It is indeed different to swallow so much intermediate nutrient solution in one breath. After swallowing the nutrient solution, Jia Yan's compound eyes lit up. Then he looked around, came to a corner of the greenhouse, and then slowly crawled down. This kind of devouring is like a process of enjoying delicious food to him, so it is normal for him to want to lie down and experience it. But when Daphne over there saw the crawling mosquito, a strange look suddenly appeared in her eyes. Then she continued to move the fingers hidden behind her back, and the few metal pieces slipped out of the sleeves of her clothes, and with strange energy, they radiated into the sky. Just wait, it will be soon. Daphne looked at the big mosquito with a smile on her lips. Jia Yan is recovering his strength, while Daphne is making small moves in secret. As for Nagatan, he is immersed in the joy of becoming more powerful in his own breeding farm. Everyone has their own happiness and purpose. These people from various civilizations gathered together are only together temporarily at this time. No one knows what their future encounters and events will be like. What will happen? The battle between battle pets in the city has finally ushered in the next big step. Top 100. Top 50. Top 25. Just as the host initially guessed, the assassin actually sang all the way and got closer to the top 25. The name Assassin. He is no longer just a war pet lover in the outer city. It is a name that will be mentioned, but it is also often mentioned in the inner city and several other special areas in those cities. Even some related units paid attention to this pet monster that suddenly appeared. Some people were curious enough to check out the monster's past. But they were all surprised to find that there were no records of this monster's previous traces. But natural. Those people inspecting are not official forces. The current large mosquitoes have not yet reached the point where they can enter the city officials, if the officials go to check. It is easy to check the entry records of Big Mosquito and his master Daphne. Even the woman's false identity will be exposed soon. However, the current giant mosquitoes have not yet come into official sight. After all, it is just a battle pet. Who would have thought that, although its performance is eye-catching, but it is not up to the level of a strong man. It is actually an evolved beast that any interstellar civilization would care about. Guten has been completely happy in recent days. Even though he helps Big Mosquito buy some mid-level nutrient solution every few days, after winning so many competitions, his battle pet breeding farm has become completely popular in the outer city. As a breeding farm in the outer city, the battle pets that go out can actually compete with those powerful battle pets in the inner city, and even make those battle pets prepared with advanced technology continue to fall into the dust. This powerful combat power is so no joke. Many wealthy people in the outer city and even some in the inner city came to his breeding farm and bought some battle pets to use as housekeepers or to participate in some entertainment projects such as battle pet competitions. So all of a sudden, even if Guten kept spending money to help Jia Yan buy nutrient solution, the amount of money coming in was even more. I made a lot of money. Assassin. Next is the top 25 competition. If you are not sure, it is okay to lose. It is enough for us to get to this point. Today was another battle. On the way there, Guten grabbed the big mosquito that seemed to be able to understand his words and talked about the precautions. In fact, there was nothing to say. This battle pet came to him. He didn't do as much as the outside world said. Not to mention tactical arrangements, he didn't need to do any maintenance and inspections for general battle pets. He just helped buy some nutrient solution after battle. That's it. If a truly powerful battle pet could be cultivated in this way, the planet would probably be full of powerful battle pets. So he knows that all those honors are not his true level. It doesn't matter if you lose at this point. But his next sentence still exposed his true thoughts, but if you can win, then if you win again this time, I will buy you 5 bottles of intermediate nutrient solution. Although I don't know why you can eat so much nutrition. Liquid, but as long as you like it, I can give these to you as a reward. Jia Yan likes jujubes like this very much. After hearing these words, the strange color in the big mosquito's eyes disappeared. Gu Tan is a person who is familiar with war pets. Although Jia Yan cannot be considered a war pet, his expression was still captured by this war pet domestication boss. He immediately knew that the assassin wanted to win. Well, it seems that the assassin still has great hope of winning, so I will still bet most of my wealth on the assassin to win this time. As a war pet breeder and enthusiast, how could Guten not bet on war pets? Fighting, it was these gambling fights before that made his net worth increase many times in one go. Now that he saw the strange brilliance of Big Mosquito, he knew that Big Mosquito was definitely confident of winning, so he bet again. Defuni on the other side was watching the conversation between the two parties with an indifferent expression. This time the group passed through the streets of the outer city and walked forward. The streets in the outer city are still the same as before, without any life. Many places are the kind of places that seem to be incomparable to the quality of life of people on Earth. After all, the cities on this planet, no matter how big they are restricted. In addition to the radius and size, agriculture, industry, and some special processing plants must all be in the city, so the dark sides of the city are reflected in the outer city, which is completely not on the Earth. It can also remove some bad things from big cities. So much so that Jia Yan is in these days. I also learned about the dark side of many alien civilizations. But at this time, they were actually not heading towards the competition arena in the outer city. Instead, he crossed the road and waited for a moment in front of a huge gate. Inside the gate, it is a region with completely different architectural styles. The high-rise buildings there are much taller than those in the outer city. Many houses are towering into the sky, and the flying cars inside are even more gorgeous and advanced. There are some flying cars constantly, making beautiful circles in the sky. Then it falls to the ground. The people in the outer city looked envious. Not long after, the huge door opened. The bustling scenery inside also appeared before our eyes. Jia Yan was led by the three-headed monster Guten was riding. Carrying De Funi, we walked forward. That's right, the inside of this gate. This is the real center of the city, the inner city. The top 25 battle pets in the competition can enter the advanced competition arena in the inner city to compete, which can be regarded as a benefit to those battle pets and their owners in the outer city. At this time, some people in the inner city came forward to introduce Naguten. Jia Yan followed behind, looking at the surrounding scenery strangely as he moved forward. This is the imaginary alien civilization. Those tall buildings are rising one after another, some of them really reach the sky. The tallest building, Jia Yan can hardly see the end of it, it seems that it really leads to the universe. What Jia Yan doesn't know is that that building really leads to the universe. From there, many aliens can go into the weightless vacuum and then take spaceships to and from the stars. In addition to the difference in buildings, even the basic things are fundamentally different from those in the outer city. Even the mental outlook of those living beings is no longer decadent, but feels extremely confident and happy. The sense of technology here is also different. Even when walking on the street, those mobile robots are maintaining law and order and picking up debris in the utility room, and are very polite to living creatures. Hello, sir, please give way. A spherical robot measuring 70 to 80 centimeters moved to Jia Yan's feet, emitting an electronically synthesized sound effect. Jia Yan moved his front feet, and a can-like debris under his feet was picked up by the machine. Thank you for your cooperation and wish you a happy life. The machine continued to move to other places speaking the language of the Asta people. It was such a wonderful experience along the way. The free holograms on the roadside, the restaurants with free food, and more free things all appeared here. What are these? The free strategy of those stores is actually to make money. If it is in our empire, there are truly free cities. De Funi seemed to see the strange look in the big mosquito's eyes, and immediately snorted coldly. A sound. So, have you seen it with your own eyes? If you haven't seen it, just don't mention it, okay, Jia Yan replied lightly. Daphne suddenly choked up. She had told Big Mosquito before that she was basically a being who was raised in the solar system and had never been to other galaxies in 300 years. If she hadn't come here inexplicably with Big Mosquito, Galaxy is still a bumpkin who plays with himself every day in the solar system. There was no way to refute, so she had no choice but to look ugly and remain silent. There are many advanced features in this inner city, but most Jia Yan can't understand their advantages. After all, for a life form with a huge difference in civilization level, you can only see some superficial things, such as those flying skyscrapers. Jia Yan could tell that each of the cars was very advanced, but he couldn't tell the luxury cars and low-priced cars among them. There were also those shops, each of which hired robots to clean them. It looked like they were all extremely clean, so Jia Yan can't tell which one is luxurious and which one is for common people. This is the difference. And as a group of them, slowly moving towards the battle arena in the corner of the city under the gaze of the inner city residents. In the center of the city, in a huge building, a snow-white life form looked at a holographic screen that was 70 or 80 meters large with its beautiful, shining eyes. Above is the image of a group of giant mosquitoes entering this inner city. Sir, we have been observing him for so many days. Do we want to arrest him today? Near this snow-white life form, stood a short and stooped life form respectfully. This life form had the shape of a mouse, but its head was slightly shorter. It looks like an enlarged version of a rat spirit. He is the leader of the rat monster chasing Jia Yan and the two. He stood in front of a white life form about 20 meters in size, as if he were an ant, insignificant. The white life form looked at the rat spirit leader with its beautiful big eyes, and then moved its gaze away. It's not the time yet. Do you really think that what you saw is all his true strength? Ha ha ha. A beautiful female voice appeared in the air, and the sound is condensed and undisturbed, which shows that the control of brainwave power has reached an extremely powerful level. If I'm not wrong, his strength is much more than this. It's interesting that a life form suddenly appeared, and its strength is so strong. No wonder my father is so interested in him. This vigorous life form twisted its body and then stood up from the ground. The holographic screen turned off directly. Today is his top 25 competition. It's such an exciting battle, why don't we go there and have a look? Come on, let's go to that battle pet competition center. The huge white life form shook the white and crystal clear fur all over its body, moved its body calmly, and walked out from the advanced VIP building specially arranged by the city's high-level officials. Yes. The rat monster leader behind him couldn't possibly refute, so he quickly followed him.